So we're live, man. Hello, everybody. This is my first podcast I'm doing in English, so I ask you to be very patient with me today. I'm joined here by Zerse here. He's a YouTuber who's been uploading content for a very long time. I think it's been years since you started, right, Zerse?
Yes.
So, for the people that may not know you before, could you introduce yourself really quick?
So essentially, I would consider myself a
Mm-hmm.
social commentator. I
Mm-hmm.
essentially talk about male female relationships, men,
Mm-hmm.
masculinity, mostly at this point, speaking more about virtue and trying to help people kind of understand that we're better together as men and women rather than continuing all this gender war nonsense.
Yeah, what inspired you in the first place to start uploading your videos and becoming a social commentator on the internet, right? Because that means a lot of exposure, right? You're exposing your thoughts, which might not be uh, often, taken as lightly or as good as one would think, right? Some people may take offense on what you say.
Yeah, I would say if people take offense to what I say, I think that's more a reflection of them than me.
it,
I would be
it,
honest with you.
it often is.
So to answer your question,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I started making videos on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
was essentially it was actually more comedy. I actually wanted to more
Mm-hmm.
make people laugh and be entertaining. But
What what
as
happened?
I got older, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, I had issues with women. I had issues trying to understand them because
Mm-hmm.
what they said they wanted it wasn't matching with what they picked. It
Mm.
really confused me. So essentially, and I also kind of went through different depressive bouts,
Mm-hmm.
different sad thoughts and different life experiences. So as I was going through it, I figured, well, what if I try to help people
Mm-hmm.
with the things I've learned, so maybe they don't, experience the things I experienced. So essentially, it was I could still be entertaining, I could still be funny, but
Mm-hmm.
instead of just coming up with random nonsense, what if I actually have like a point to it? And what if I actually, like talk about the psychology I've learned, talk about helping people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the main motivation is helping people and kind of giving them a perspective and
Mm-hmm.
a take on things that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So I more want to encourage them to think critically and to kind of look at things from a way that they wouldn't have otherwise thought.
Yeah, I think that's um, something that I think it's really valuable from your channel. You give certain comments, and your insight is not what you often hear on most places, right? Um, uh, what you say about trying to help people becoming, better people. It's again a really worthwhile endeavor. So I think on that sense, I think your channel is very good. And something that piqued my interest in what you said was that you started this like as you coped with depression, right? With your depression bouts. I think
Mhm.
there are several channels that start this way that use YouTube, to vent their ideas, to expose what they think, what they feel, and along the way they start, making their brand, right? Or start learning things about how people operate, probably based on the feedback that they get. Um, do you think you're the same guy who started this channel? I think you started uploading 9 years ago. Do you think the person that you are is an improvement of the person that started your videos, or you think you're in the same place?
I mean, I would say I'm a lot better.
You
I would
would.
hope. I would hope that I'm a lot better. Yeah, I would say. I think it's fair
Mm-hmm.
to say that I'm a lot better. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Why do you think you're much better? Do you think have you received feedback that has made you reflect on where you started, for example?
I would say that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot happier. The
Mm.
things that I know, I'm a lot wiser. I can see things a lot better, and I've
Mm.
been really helpful with people. And I've been really good at helping people. So, when you add all those different things up, I would say that I'm doing pretty good,
Do you have
or at
any?
least better than what
Mm.
I was. When I
Uh,
started, I was like,
mm-hmm.
I was when I was like a teenager, and then when I was more regular,
Mm-hmm.
I was like 20. So yeah, I think after
Mm.
7 years, I would hope that I'm better.
Yeah, that's something that comes with the experience, right? And I wanted to ask you about improving people's lives, right? Have you any have people said to you that your videos have helped them in any sort of way? Any experiences that you might want to share with us?
I don't have any like specific
Mm-hmm.
experience in mind, but I get different comments, where people
Mm-hmm.
say that they're looking at things in a different way, or I've articulated a thought that they've had but they couldn't really
Mm.
express. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really something very interesting when you hear someone speak about a certain topic, right? A certain subject.
Hmm.
And one of the things, um, one's thoughts tend to be like gray matter, right? Something that's kind of in the mist. And it has happened to me that when I watch some of your videos, you articulate your opinions in a certain way that make way too much sense to me, as if I already thought what you said, but you put it in a way that's to me it often is quite brilliant. Um, as you said, it must be very rewarding to see that your words have this impact on people.
I wouldn't use the word
Rewarding,
rewarding. I would say validating, which I know I
validating.
say I say that it's not like the validation for like my self-worth that I kind of tell people to avoid,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of like confirmation that I'm doing something to help these people.
Mm,
Because that's the most important thing to me. So like I don't really feel like I need a reward for doing what's right, but at the same
mm,
time, I do want to know that I have been helpful, that I have been conducive to some of these people's lives, whether it's they laughed or they see something from a different perspective.
it's not a matter of consequence to you. It's a matter of doing what's right, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's really, that's really good. And why in this regard are men issues so important to you? What drove you to wanting to understand like the female psychology, the dating sites, and all that stuff?
So so that's actually a really good question. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, I didn't really start off talking more about like men's issues until what happened with Elliot Rodger.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really become an anti-feminist until I
Mm-hmm.
learned about rape culture. So
Mm.
I wouldn't say I ever really became a MRA,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't really say I ever really became MGTOW.
Mm.
But as far as wanting to be positive towards men, I had seen that men have just spent years just being torn down, and even consistently to this day,
Mm-hmm.
how most people have loads of criticisms for men consistently. Lots of people can complain about men and tell men what they're doing wrong, but very seldom does anyone tell men what they're doing right.
Mm.
It's always, you're never good enough. You have to be better. You got to change. There's all that consistently, but there's no voice for young men to come out and say, listen, like you have value. Like
Mm.
yeah, you can always improve. You can always change, but you have to remember that just from off rip, just from start to finish, like you matter. There's not a lot of telling young men that you matter and that you're an important part of just how the world works.
Can I add something to that?
Hmm.
I think that's really interesting what you say because where I'm from, Chile, um, the culture here it's becoming very I don't want to say feminized, but more driven by feminism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of policing going on in regards to men's taste, right? You're not allowed to, like skinny women because that's oppressive, right? That's unjust for women who have different bodies, as they say. Um, and what's happening right now is that women are like trying to police men in terms of the content that they consume, be it like erotic media, stuff like that, or who they follow in Instagram, to the point that if you, I don't know, if you like a picture of an Instagram model, it's a reflection of your general taste in women. So if you're, I don't know, if you have a girlfriend, a wife, or something like that, it's like stating to the world, to all your acquaintances, that even though you are married to a, let's say, a 5 out of 10 woman, your taste in women, has to do with uh, women with large breasts, right? Who expose a lot of skin, and they start shaming this man, right? Telling them that's not right to, you know, uh, to like that stuff. And we can debate a lot about, let's say, about culture nowadays, how it's hypersexualized. But my main point that it comes from controlling men rather than helping them be better, right? Um, and it adds to this atmosphere of that gives you the sensation that being a man in and of itself is wrong, right? It's something that you should be asking forgiveness, because it's almost like a cardinal sin to feminists. I don't know if you share this let's say train of thought.
Ask the question again.
I don't know if you share this like opinion, or some
Um,
or if something like that happens too in America.
so yes, I would say there is a lot of policing of men's sexuality. I think one thing
Mm-hmm.
that's a little more than just what you follow on Instagram is like what you look at even at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Lately there's been a kerfuffle
Mm.
of ladies recording men in the gym and calling them creeps because they glance at them slightly.
Mm.
Um, it's like a lot of the men aren't really doing anything. There's only one video
Mm.
I'd ever seen of a guy that actually was legitimately creepy, and he
Mm.
was sniffing the woman's butt every time she bent over um during her one of I think during her squats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a clear
Mm.
obvious like yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah,
But my
yeah.
thing is
So
like
sorry to interrupt you there, but it's almost like I don't know. If I saw it, I would. My first reaction would be to think that it's staged, because nobody can be so gross.
yeah, exactly, right? Like
Mm.
there are definitely those times where things are just like so alien or like there's just
Mm.
like so it's just so weird or like cartoonish. You're just like that can't be true. But nah, he was caught on camera.
Yeah.
So and he got like fired and everything. So it was like,
Mm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it wasn't staged.
It was
He really
legit.
was that guy.
Ugh,
So it's like
damn.
they exist, but here's the thing. They know what they're doing is wrong. Everyone knows what they're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when dudes just glance at you repeatedly and then you want to say that they're creepy. That's when
Mm.
you're taking it too far.
Mm.
Because really, the only thing he did wrong was that he just wasn't the man you wanted and he looked at you. That was his
Yeah.
crime. He
Yeah.
looked at you while being ugly.
he, he, he wasn't Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I get what you mean.
every single
Mm.
one of those videos, it's never some blonde haired, blue eyed, chiseled, Chris Hemsworth looking guy.
It's not.
Never,
It's never an Adonis.
never, never that guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
because if there was someone, I mean, who was actually quite handsome, they would approach the guy.
Yeah,
It's,
that's my thing, right?
mm,
Because I would be inclined. Here's the thing: I would
mhm,
have far more empathy, and I would believe the woman a lot more
mhm,
if the creepy guy legitimately was 6'2", handsome, blue eyes.
mm,
Maybe he's Tyrone. Maybe he's a black guy, and he's just like licking his lips, and she's just catching him on camera,
mm,
just staring darts at her. Fair enough, 100%. But when it's just some da 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 oofy doofy
mm,
guy who's just going to get on the treadmill,
mm,
I just can't empathize with that. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's like all he did was look at you a
mm,
few times. Like why are we gonna villainize him? Why are we gonna sit here and pretend? Now the good
mm,
news is,
mhm,
from what I've seen, most people are hip to this. Most people are like, yeah, they're creepy people, but that's not creepy. It's okay, that's good at
mhm.
least. But at the same time, it's like, how many times are women thinking this, but they're not posting it on the internet? Like, how many
Mm.
of them are thinking in their heads, "Oh, creeper, creeper, ew," but really, he's just some guy. He's just some random man living his life. He's not even doing
Mm.
anything. Like, he's looking at her a few times, but at the same time, here's another thing. I'm gonna make a video about this soon. It's like, if your entire objective in the gym is to be more physically attractive, how can you be upset that you're more physically attractive?
Yeah, their aim is to attract more people, and when they do, they complain. And
Yeah.
I think somebody said it before. I don't know who it was, but it was really strange to see these women, uh, complaining about the ugly guys, right?
Mhm.
By sharing their videos on TikTok, where tens of thousands of men are watching them. So it's not that they don't want to be seen or watched. It's that they don't want them to be right next to them, right? Because
Mhm.
if the vast majority of the men are on the other side of the, let's say, the cell phone screen, they have no problem with that. It's the immediate proximity, I think.
Great point, man. Which is
Mm.
something I was gonna say, right? I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
say, it's really interesting that they'll post what food they eat. They'll literally post their location in the watermark of their Instagram thing. They'll talk about their day in a vlog. They'll
Mm-hmm.
share all these details of their lives to strangers on the internet they don't know.
Mm.
But if someone were to walk by them and glance at their butt, then all of a sudden he's a creeper. It's like, wouldn't it be more creepy for random people who don't know you to listen to you talk about your life constantly? Isn't
Yeah.
that isn't that more weird?
Yeah, something happened to me a week ago that resonates uh, um, very much with what you say. I had an experience with a girl that I used to follow on Instagram, and this girl would post every single detail about her life. Right,
Mhm,
her Instagram was private, but she accepted my request to follow her. So
mhm,
she had no problem, you know, informing her audience of, I would say, 900 men, because I doubt more than that. I highly doubt that more than 20% of her audience is compressed of women.
yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
she would post every single detail, and one time, I was kind of drunk, and I liked one of her pictures she shared on her stories, right? And it was like a very revealing picture of her, but not to a point that would demand, banning her. And so I liked the picture, and she sent me a message telling me I was a creep. So I was like, wait a minute. You post every single detail about your life, right? Um, you accepted my request to follow you. You gave me permission to see your content in that regard. But now that I accidentally liked one of your pictures, which was um, a very erotic one, now she calls me a creep. How come I am the
Mm,
creep if I'm reacting to what she's sharing with her followers, right? It's you know it's quite strange to me because if you, I had a friend who said to me that she likes to take pictures of herself with little clothes, right? But
Hmm.
she didn't do it as a means to you know to create a reaction on people, right? And I said to myself, is it possible to take a picture not wanting to get a reaction from somebody, not a sexual reaction, just a reaction? Because even
Yeah,
if
that's
you
nonsense.
yeah, because even if you take the picture of a flower, you want to get the reaction of the people that would see the picture and be happy, to
Hmm.
spread joy, stuff like that. You want to get a reaction. That's why to get the picture. And she took great offense to this thought. And I wasn't saying to her that she deserves the rude comments that she often gets. I just said that if you upload a picture, it's because you want to create and you want to get a reaction from the audience. Even if it's not sexual, you want a reaction from the audience. It might be appreciation, right? It might be wonder from your picture. It might be everything, but you want a reaction. And and the thing that strikes me as odd as is that these women are getting the reaction that they clearly want, but when they do it, they get offended, and that's
Yeah, they get offended
really
because they don't like you, or they get
yeah.
offended because you call them out.
mm,
Like it's fine for them to cope with the fact that they're posting all this for male validation, but the moment you put it in their face, they got nothing to hide. They can't hide from it. They have to deal with whatever they were feeling. So that's why they get mad at you. Like
mm,
rather than having to come to terms with the fact that they are just coping with whatever is bothering them,
mhm,
whether it's their low self esteem or their loneliness, they blame you. They get upset with you. So
mm,
you're the problem. It's not me. It's you. Like you're doing all this nonsense. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a mental defense mechanism.
Yeah. Along that line, one thing that another kind of slur that's often employed to describe these creeps, as women like to put it, is the word incel. Um, do you know what the word incel means? Do you have
Of course.
any? Thank you. Can you define for the audience what the word incel means?
Well, there's two definitions of
Mm-hmm.
incel, right? The first definition of incel is involuntary celibate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shorthand for that, which means it's somebody that wants to have relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but due to the fact that they might be ugly, socially awkward, or a combination of the two, they
Mm-hmm.
really cannot. And then there's the second definition of incel, and that's anybody that says something about women I don't like.
Sorry. Too good of a definition. What can I say? Yeah, and this
So
is
yeah.
connecting to something you said earlier. It's a term that got very popularized by the Elliot Roger case, right?
Yeah, Elliot Roger.
Yeah. Here in Chile, the word incel it's often used as a slur, right?
Mhm.
But most people don't even know where it comes from.
Mm.
Don't know the Elliot Roger thing. Some people here in Chile do. Some who are like very who spend too much time on the internet know this about Elliot Roger, but most people don't. But they know the word incel. And to me, it's really interesting because being involuntary celibate is anyone who is around the age of 16 and wants to have a date, right? He's
Mhm.
celibate, but he doesn't want to be celibate. Um, even if he's not attractive or not to the until the point that he gets his first relationship, he is an incel. But people use it as a slur without ever reflecting on what it means, where it comes from. And this is especially true in my country, where I tell people where this what comes from, and they had no clue whatsoever. To most people, incel means like actually virgin, right? Like
Oh,
virgin
okay.
or loser here. Um,
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, why do you think this word became a slur and it spread like wildfire so fast across the world?
Man, that's a really great question. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not entirely sure
Mm-hmm.
what made it spread so much, apart from the different like spree shooters or the spree killings that came
Mm-hmm.
in the media circuses around
Mm.
that. Now, what's interesting is how people use it to villainize these men
Mm.
whom are simultaneously incredibly dangerous and are want to come and shoot you up.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that they're the last person in the world that you would mistreat
Yeah,
and
actually.
bully and hurt, because you would just be adding yourself to the list of individuals that are going to get shot by them.
Mm-hmm.
You would think. So,
Mm.
interestingly enough, what incel kind of really reflects, or the fact that people are fine with like more or less abusing these young men, or just throwing this label out to anybody really that says
Mm-hmm.
something disparaging about women, is that they don't actually fear these guys at all.
Mm.
They don't even pity them. It's just hatred. It's disdain. They don't care about your problems. They don't care that you're bothered. uh,
Mm-hmm.
Too bad, so sad. You're a bad person, and as
Mm.
such, you kind of deserve it. Like, if women
Mm.
don't like you, it's a reflection of you. It has nothing to do with them. It's not their make
Yeah.
selecting choices. They can never have any
Mm.
trauma. They can never pick wrong. They can never do anything wrong. If women don't like you, it's you. But of course,
Mm.
that's not reasonable. It's not reasonable at all. Number
Yeah.
one, you would never say that about women to men. If men don't like you, then the
Mm.
problem is men. You'd never hear that in the
Yeah, there
mainstream.
are several articles on the internet floating around saying that men should step up, right? Because, you know, successful women like Charlize
Mhm.
Theron are single, and we should step our game. And it's like, yeah, how
How?
come it's my fault that
Yeah.
she's single,
Can we get
right?
some affirmative action, right?
Yeah.
Right? Can we get some scholarships for being male? Can we
Yeah.
get a quota? Can we get a push? It's like society spent a whole
Mm.
bunch of time trying to push women into multiple different positions, some of
Mm-hmm.
which they wanted and some of which they didn't, at the
Mm-hmm.
expense of young men, by oftentimes discouraging them and villainizing them and
Mm.
telling them that they're bad people. So it's like, okay, so now we have a whole bunch of men that are underachievers and don't really want to try and aren't
Mm.
galvanized to do anything, and a whole bunch of women that are overachievers who are like, but wait, though, I need men to take care of me.
Mm.
So these young ladies, they took all of the jobs, but at no point did they take any of the virtue. At no point
Mm.
did they say, wait a minute, the reason why men worked so hard was to take care of their families.
Mm.
Maybe I should take care of a family now too. No. No, 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 no. They're still
Mm.
supposed to get all that money, and then some man is supposed to come take care of them. But it's like, okay, why would a man even need to come take care of you because you have a lot of money? So then they're like, okay, well, I don't want a man. I'm sorry, they say, I don't need a man proudly.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
say, I want a man. And the only reason why they, quote, want a man is just to make them feel good about themselves. So all the things that they value about men is all just fluff and material. Like, they don't
Mm.
really care about virtue. They're not trying to take care of them. They just want a guy that looks nice to just like walk around with them and to bring to parties. But they're not actually here for a relationship. They don't really care about any of that stuff.
Mm.
And so that's, go ahead. Yeah, got a lot of women like that.
Yeah, there's this thing that feminists tend to say, right? That is, women don't see men as ATM machines. But the moment they get the first date, what do they ask for? That they be invited, right? That the male one, the man, pays the bill, never them. So to me, it's always been like, confusing because where I am from, feminism is very much on vogue, right? Um, and these ideas like female independence, right? If independence from economic independence are often discussed greatly, but and they always repeat these mantras that they are self-sufficient, that they need no man, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
that they can buy their own stuff. But the moment that they interact with a man, the first thing the most think about is, where's he going to take me to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What are
that's
we
a good
going to
point.
eat? What are we going to drink? Is he going to pay for it? Because if not, then
He's
uh,
not the man for me, you know?
yeah,
Which is
that.
hilarious. They want to
Mm,
maintain traditionalism when it benefits them, as we've seen for years,
mm,
but they are not want to do anything for men. For
yeah,
them to try to do anything for men, that's oppression, or there's something wrong there.
yeah. That's the thing that they would say. Where it's like you're just broke, right? Um,
Hmm.
to me, it was really hilarious because several times I had more money than the women I would date, but I wasn't willing to pay for the part of the bill. I was like, no, if I'm not sure this is going to lead to something fruitful for me, I'm in no way investing more money that I'm already investing in, right?
Yes, you think would be fair.
Yeah, one would think so, and one would be very, very wrong. um, but luckily, here in Chile at least, there has been some gradual change. Women, well, the younger generation are more willing to pay for their part, right, for the half of the
Hmm.
bill. But something tells me in America, it's been much more difficult. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's something about American women that
yeah,
they are very, they have like
very
this.
arrogant and narcissistic.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
narcissism, man. I think that's
And by
the main
and by
thing.
narcissism, I do mean very close to the clinical condition. I don't
Yeah.
just mean like they're just like self-absorbed. I mean,
Mm,
if you were to read a list of symptoms of narcissism, it is a lot of millennial to Gen Z. I'm sorry,
mm-hmm,
young ladies. It really is.
mm,
And the reason why I know this is because, well, for one, I
mm-hmm,
had a very basic understanding of narcissists.
mm-hmm,
So one of the basic understanding of narcissists is that they actually are not very egotistical people.
mm-hmm.
They're actually the opposite. They have very low self-esteem and
Yeah.
self-worth. So they need the validation of everyone around them, or they need to put down other people so they feel good about themselves. Like that's the irony of narcissism.
Mm,
And so from that first mover point alone, whenever I saw ladies on TikTok say or talk about their narcissistic abuse, I would say, well, something just doesn't sound quite right about that. The things that they would say, it just it didn't sound like something a
mm,
narcissistic person would do. For
mm,
example, they talk about how when I survived my narcissistic abuse, he would do things for me, he would love bomb me, he would gaslight me, and I'm like, "No, no, 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 he
mm.
would not. Not if he's a narcissist, he wouldn't do that.
No.
If he was a narcissist, he would spend more time putting you down. If he was a
Mm,
narcissist, he would spend more time trying to get you to puff him up. He would look for trinkets, he would look for special attention.
mm,
He would try to belittle you, but only relative to it makes him look good. He wouldn't be doing that to keep you around or to isolate you. He wants validation constantly.
mm,
He would be very stylish. He would focus a lot on his physical appearance. Those
mm,
would be the signs or the telltale signs, or at least a few of them,
mhm,
of like what a narcissist would be. What
mm,
they describe typically is someone that has very little empathy and is more want to harm them and to isolate
mm,
them. And that's closer to a psychopath. So
mm,
even if it's not a full blown psychopath, an abusive
mhm,
person, right, doesn't necessarily, or it's not mutually exclusive that a narcissist can't be an abusive person, but they
mm,
typically would not act the way that that they're described, like on TikTok. That's not really how a narcissist would work. A psychopath,
Yeah.
on the other hand, lack of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
lots of manipulation, isolation. They really don't care about your feelings.
Mm.
Yeah, that sounds more like a psychopath than you dated a narcissist. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing because I agree on your diagnosis in terms of women being quite narcissistic nowadays, or
mhm.
not the entirety population of women, right? But
Yes,
there's a great
there's a lot of
majority.
symptoms you could say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so too. On my side of the world here in Chile, I I tend to see that the younger women are becoming quite narcissistic, that they think the world owes them something,
Mhm.
they owe them everything, right? And in some regards I think they might have some points, right? For example, in the sense of how baby boomers destroyed the economy, right?
Mhm.
um, in that sense, our generation, I think it's owed an explanation. But the main thing I always get from life is that no one owes you anything, right? Besides what I just described, the vast
Mhm.
majority of people don't owe you an apology for being right. They don't owe you
Yeah.
a way of becoming successful. They don't owe you a path to follow, right? That's
That's
your
something you just gotta eat as a man, right? As a
yeah.
young lady,
Mm.
not really. You get a whole bunch of smoke blown up your butt throughout your lifetime.
Yeah, because I think what I get from American culture is that femininity is it's more than praised, right? If
Mhm.
you
Is deified.
it's deified, right?
Like there's
Right.
something mystical about it when
Yeah, it's like Bill Burr said before that they think they are these celestial beings floating around us, and we should be grateful that they are. And it's not the case. They're just made of flesh and bone, just like us.
precisely. They bleed like us, they poop like us,
Yeah.
They drink water like us.
Hmm. Why do you think where this narcissism comes from? Do you have any theories on that?
I would say I do have a couple of different theories. I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing is the brainworm of feminism.
Mm.
When feminism, there's been two things: an overcorrection and a feminist demonization of men. So
Mm.
the overcorrection of like women feeling poor about themselves is to gas them up constantly and tell them
Mm.
that they're really great. The only problem is young ladies can't really believe that because it's a whole bunch of nonsense. It's like,
Mm.
you can. It's nice to say that I'm great and wonderful, but like I don't feel that way because like I actually haven't accomplished something or I don't have skills. So they
Mm.
always on the surface will be like, "Oh, thank you." Some of them will even milk it, right? Like they'll
Mm.
milk the positive affirmation, but again, it means nothing. It's like putting water
Mm.
in a bucket that has a hole. So it's like, you're filling it and filling it, but what's going to happen?
Mm.
The water's going to spill out. So the overcorrection of like a lot of women's insecurity
Mm-hmm.
is just to keep fluffing them up rather than
Mm.
to encourage them to build true confidence. And confidence is like competency or a skill or a humble spirit of like knowing what you can and can't do.
Mm.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is, when you spend years raising young ladies to be afraid of men and to downright dislike men and that men aren't worth anything, relatively they're going to start believing that they're better than men or that men are just villainous or men are just kind of the devil more or less in their kind of framework or in their kind of religion. So it makes perfect sense that they're not going to have any respect for men, but
Mm.
combine that with their ego puffing, they're going to start thinking that they're above it. So
Mm.
it's a whole mixture of different things going on there.
Yeah, and the most tragic thing I think it's this all this puffing, it goes nowhere, right? Because
Hmm.
at the end of their lives, these women tend to be quite miserable, right? They tend to
Yep.
be bitter, angry at the world, and they don't know where their frustration comes from. I have an experience I want to share with you in terms of puffing, right? I have this friend who is computer technician. Um, and one day we met, right? We were eating cookies and having a glass of, I don't know if it was juice or beer, something like that. And she would tell me that she had an awful day, right, at work, where she felt like her skills were put into question, right? She didn't feel appreciated. She didn't feel. She was starting to have doubts about her career and stuff like that. And I sat with her and started doing the opposite of what other women would tell her, right? That
Hmm.
all her female friends would tell her, but you are great, man. I mean, woman. You're doing this fantastic. The other guys are wrong. You keep doing you, right? And
Hmm.
that's not helpful.
Precisely.
I didn't want to, bathe her with, shower her with pretty words, because that amounts to nothing. So I told her, um, try to distance yourself from the feedback that you got, right? Try to
Hmm.
see why your your uh, your your your
I guess supervisor. I don't
yeah, let's
know.
say supervisor. Let's say supervisor.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
thinking of another word, but I can't remember. Let's
Hmm.
say, try to think why your supervisor got your attention, right? Why he gave you the feedback that he did. Um, don't try to think that you're doing bad, right? You're starting at this. You're new. It's okay to make mistakes, right? And you're going to learn on the way, and you have to keep pushing forward. And when I told her that, she was really grateful, because she said, "Wow, you didn't just tell me that I'm awesome and all that stuff. You actually gave me concrete advice on what I
Hmm.
should do, on how to manage my feelings." Um, and she was again really grateful. And uh, the
She's a very
next
humble
week,
person, so that's really good. Yeah.
yeah, and the next week, I asked her, "How are you doing? Did my advice work?" And she said, "Yeah, it actually did."
Hmm.
She was feeling much better, and and she asked a couple of her girlfriends, right, their opinion on the matter, and they all told her what I told her they would tell her. Right? That was something awkward to say, but yeah, everything that they
No,
tell
basically they puffed her up. Yeah, I know what you meant.
yeah, yeah, right. It was like, but she realized that nothing they told her was of any use.
Hmm.
It was just puffing up for the sake of puffing up, and it's just, you know awful. It doesn't lead anywhere. It creates narcissistic people, um, which, talking about narcissistic people, something I think it's really interesting that's happening right now, in terms of, this, let's say, rejection of all that is male, from feminists, stuff like that. There are some figures, let's say, controversial figures that are emerging, mainly because they say everything that feminists don't want us to say. But these, let's say, these controversial figures are not necessarily good, in terms of role modeling, right? And I'm talking about the Tate brothers specifically.
Mr. Tate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What's your take on the Tate brothers, and specifically Andrew? Do you think
Yeah.
these people?
So, um, yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
No, 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 no.
I
You go.
I don't know much about Tristan.
Mm-hmm.
I assume they're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, they
That's
are.
the best I can do. Yeah. So I assume they're cut from the same cloth. But I can't really speak on Tristan too much. I can
Mm-hmm.
really only speak to
To
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Tate I call him.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, I'm not fond of Andrew Tate, and the reason why is because I don't really think that feeding more materialism into the machine is
Mm,
going to stop the machine. So if the problem of the world is that people are too materialistic and they
mm,
care more about things than they do people, then that doesn't get solved if we just encourage people to just
mm,
keep being materialistic. It's like you don't have to be stuck only thinking, "Oh, I gotta get all these muscles, and I gotta get all these cars, and I gotta get all this stuff."
mm,
Like, let's try to make everyone Batman, but it's like everyone can't be Batman.
mm.
Everyone
Yeah.
can't be the greatest person in the world. What we need is an appreciation for just to be like the garbage collectors, right?
Mm,
Like, we need a
mm,
subsect of society of people that are comfortable being okay, like just being normal, just being average. That like a man shouldn't have to shoot for the moon to be loved by a woman. That's
mm,
absurd to me. That young men have to be models of human excellence so
mm,
that they're finally quote unquote worthy enough to be loved. And it's like,
mm.
"But why? Like, why do I have to be the greatest human being who ever lived?" And that's obviously exaggeration,
Yeah.
but it's like you gotta be like a top 10 to 1 percenter. You have to do things other men aren't willing to do. And even then, here's the worst part still, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you gotta juxtapose that with all of the men who aren't like that. So, there's
Mm,
all these different dweebs that end up getting
mm,
married. Okay, well,
mm,
how come this dweeb got married, but I have to be super jacked, right? So he just
mm,
got lucky. So there's just nothing I can do
mm.
about that. You have all these different you would say, you would say like frat boys, or you have like the fuck boys, if I can say that, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they're just naturally gifted with good looks, and they just naturally wanted to play sports. So they don't have to work as hard as I do, right? But
Mm,
they don't have the money. They don't do what I have to do, you know. So it's like you're telling and encouraging all of these men to just fight this uphill battle, and at the end of the road, it's not to get married to this woman, or it's not to get married to any woman, really.
mm.
It's just doing all that you can so you can finally get the validation. You can finally have sex. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you have sex, and now what? You
Mm.
know, Hamza spoke about this a few times, which I thought was interesting. You think he talked about it more, but I guess not.
Who again?
Where he Hamza,
Mm.
he's a guy who talks about self improvement. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for his words,
Mm-hmm.
and the most really is like a bunch of like just red pill stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and a high focus on going to the gym to build, as he says, an aesthetic body.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you do all this stuff, and then from the horse's mouth, from all of these men's own mouth, you hear how pointless it all is, or like how they just get tired of it. They say like, "Hey,
Mm.
at the end of the road, I had an abundance of women, and they're just so annoying. I'm just tired of it." It's like, okay, so why would you encourage men to go do this then, dumbass? If
Yeah.
that's the path, if
Mm.
that's what happens, why are you telling them to do it? And they're
Mm.
like, "Well, you have to do it. Like you have to, you have the
Mm.
abundance." It's like, but for what? You have it to have an abundance means you have more than you need. So you have more
Mm.
than you need. What are you going to do with it? All these women like you. Great. What are you going to do with it? And I think that ultimately, Andrew Tate, there's no addressing
Mm-hmm.
the other half of the species. Like the other half, like the at best, and I'm sorry I'm ranting, but
No, go on,
it
please.
it seems like at best the best advice that they give to young ladies
Mm-hmm.
is to be fit, feminine, and friendly. That's a little bit of Kevin
Mm.
Samuels thing, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so being friendly, that's just something you should just do anyway. Like if you're good people in your life, you should want to be friendly enough as it is. Being fit, listen, fam, skinny women are in the same running as
Mm-hmm.
thick women, as some overweight women. Honestly, that's not even a prerequisite to most men. So I don't even know why that's being encouraged or told to young women. Like young women should be in a healthy body state for their bodies. Like you
Mm.
should, same thing for men. Like you should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That's going to help you
Mm.
live a longer life. It's going to protect your joints. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make life easier. Life
Mm.
is easier when you're a strong person physically, okay, for
Mm.
numerous different reasons. Your immune system is
Mm.
better, your cognitive function is better.
Mm.
If you stretch, you have a wider range of motion. Literally, walking
Mm.
is better. Your balance is better. If you work on your
Mm.
balance, you're probably going to fix your clumsiness. So like, I've been learning about exercising for years, so I can just so many there's so many benefits to exercising
Yeah.
that isn't girls like you. It's like, okay, great, girls like you. I'm glad girls like you. What about your joints? What about your cardiovascular health? What about your cholesterol? What about your mental health? You know, one
Mm-hmm.
thing that we've done which is just so it's such a failure to me.
Mm-hmm.
Women have spoken about their low self-esteem, how much they hate unrealistic expectations of their beauty, how much they don't
Mm-hmm.
like being valued for just being attractive, how much they want people
Mm-hmm.
and they want men to care about them for who they are. They've talked about this for years and for years and for years.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen skinny women talk about this. We've seen thick women. We've seen models. We've even seen porn stars. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen women. They keep telling us, listen, being attractive, it's all cracked up to be. Being
Yeah.
sexualized, it's not all cracked. This makes me miserable. I hate it. People just want to use me. They said this for years. And then men looked at each other and said, okay, we'll do it too.
Yeah.
they,
I,
they told
mm,
us. And so the
mm,
thing with men is that a lot of young men will get into steroids. So the ladies will do the plastic surgery to go to the extreme end. There's a
mm,
lot of dudes who are fake naturals or fake natties.
mm-hmm.
We call them, that's a colloquial term. And so they pretend to be natural, but they're actually on steroids.
Yeah.
They're getting some type of help. They might be on testosterone replacement, trombone, so whatever it is. So that's more or less the equivalent to the plastic surgery and the Brazilian butt lifts women do.
Mm,
A lot of men will get on steroids and they'll wreck their bodies. They'll wreck their hormonal systems. And they do
mm,
all of this so they can be attractive or so they can compete or so they can maintain their image. And it's just this mental pain that these men are getting pushed into.
mm,
One thing that's interesting, I
mm,
think I don't know if I have enough material, but like I really want to dig this point home
mm-hmm.
of the body dysmorphia a lot of these guys have. It's like it's very subtle. It's
Mm,
like if you blink you miss it, but
mm,
they'll have a picture of themselves sometimes
mm-hmm.
and they'll downplay it. They'll say I'm not as shredded in here as I could be. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, to the naked eye, to any person, to me, I look at it and I'm like, your physique is fine, your physique is great, your
Mm,
physique is literally top 10 percentile. If you go to the, especially here in America, like you say, you're in Chile, but like
mm-hmm.
you go to America, you go to any grocery store, you go to any club, even you go to any
Mm-hmm.
bar, let's say you go to just even to the gym, you don't find super cut lean guys like you
Mm,
find on Instagram. You don't
mm,
see that very, that's a rare thing, right? And
mm,
obviously, if it wasn't rare, then it wouldn't be coveted. So it's like you're already in this top percentile. You'll have really good genetics for like muscle insertions and all that. You already are in the high percent and you still want more. That's how these women have felt for years. That's what these ladies have been trying to tell us for years. It's not enough. They're beautiful and they're pretty and everyone sees it, but it's not enough. They need more and more and more and more and more. Why?
you
Because they
know,
know other women
mm,
have the same thing.
you know what it sounds to me like? People like Andrew Tate and his followers, right?
Hmm.
Often mistake. I mean, get you know, they think virtue is the same thing as having stuff, right? Having lots of
Yes.
cars, you said before, having lots of women, and that's not virtue, right? Virtue is to be honorable, right? To be honest, to speak the truth, to have
Having the
your own
courage to
principles,
go against
courage,
the
right?
grain. Yeah.
To defend
Hmm.
what's right, to do what's right. And you also mentioned Kevin Samuels, and I think Kevin Samuels was a very interesting person because uh, my main take on him was that he often tried to lower women's standards, right?
Hmm.
He would often call them out on having this huge list of what a man should be able to do, or how much money they should earn, or how naive they were by starting their businesses on OnlyFans and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and he would um, she will ground them. She will ground them.
Yes.
That was really, I think that was really good from Kevin Samuels. It's really sad that he passed away.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely, man. The
yeah,
wrong person got taken away, man.
yeah, it should have been Tate.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, to contrast Kevin Samuels with Andrew Tate, he will have this guy who often says the things that may be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that feminists don't like, right? For example, that you have to work on yourself, you have to go hit the gym, um, but his main purpose of improving yourself is to get money, right? To get
Mm-hmm.
bitches, right? Which it's not helpful to anybody. It doesn't help you to have a long lasting and an enjoyable life, right?
Yeah.
Enjoyable life. I mean, um, I think what the main problem here is that people want instant gratification, right? They don't want to struggle for things that may be long term, because long term means uncertainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I get shredded tomorrow, then I will get bitches tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know, they don't realize rather than that to have you know a peaceful life, a good life, you have to work on yourself in terms of mental strength, right? On
Mm-hmm.
principles, on knowledge, right? Not just be a dude, bro, who gets
Yeah.
all the females, right? Because again, let's say that you do. Let's say that you get raped and you start having relationships with, I don't know, 5 to 10 women per week. You're gonna get bored really, really fast,
Yeah.
really, really fast, and it's not like it's not documented. For example, we have um, the Metallica story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they had lots of sex with lots of women, right? They would get showers with uh, with as many women as they wanted, and James Hetfield would feel miserable after that, right? And that's why he sobered up. He got himself a wife, which he who she divorced, I think last year. But then again, uh, she traded something that was instantly gratifying to something that would be long term. And I think that's the main issue here, that men not only they're not getting positive advice, but the advice that they get aims for short term gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think Andrew Tate is a very let's say toxic role model, right? He shouldn't be a model at all. Not only he is involved in very illegal stuff, right, and
Yeah. At
very
this point,
shady
right?
stuff, but he may say some things that may trigger your typical radical feminists, but just because he may say some things that may be true, it doesn't mean that he's a good person. And by any stretch of the imagination, he's not. He's not
Yeah.
at all. So this gives me a lot of curiosity, because I rather it makes me really curious, because I've seen several people on the right wing, on the conservative aisle of politics,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, defending him, talking as if he's like this great
Yeah.
warrior for freedom, masculinity,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
stuff. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's just not the case. He lives a very degenerate life, and conservatives should be the first
You would think.
yeah. One would think they should be the first to point it out, right? That what his advice, it's not good. Not because and again, it doesn't matter
There,
that
there's
he.
a few. There's a few, by the way, but
Yeah,
a lot of them defending are conservatives as well. So
yeah.
it's a little mixed, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of the defenders than the detractors. I can't
Yeah.
say that. I could understand if that was your takeaway.
But what why do you think that so many conservatives are paying lip service to this guy?
I would say that it's because they've lost the mainstream culture, and Andrew Tate is like the the best they've got.
Mm.
Unfortunately, that's what I think it is. He's got a lot of buying power. He's got a lot of eyes on him. He's got a name. I wouldn't say a name brand, but he's got a name
Mm.
that catches attention. It's just the
Mm.
best they've got to challenge them. But I mean, I don't think I think he's the hero we deserve, but not the one we need. How about that?
Yeah, but what hero, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that's really sad to me because if that's the best you can get, I mean that really, again, if incel reflects the word incel reflects poorly on the people who employ it as a slur. uh, I think people that are advocating in defense of Andrew Tate, it reflects really bad on them, right? Or
Or
either
at the
they
very
turn.
least, his stink gets on them, so
Yeah,
it don't really help their image.
yeah. Again, why do you think conservatives have to, settle for scam like this? But because to me, he's scam. He's through an old scam. But why do you think there are no better, let's say, men to pose as role models, right? To inspire the future
Um,
generations.
so I think that it's more a commentary on materialistic
Mm.
values
Mm.
than there's no one there, because there are people there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether you want to invoke the people that are dead or the people that are living, we do
Mm-hmm.
have people that are there. For example, you've got a lot of people who are still to this day inspired by Bruce Lee. I was inspired by
Mm.
Bruce Lee. Um, you
Mm.
have men like Desmond Doss. You guys probably don't know, but there's a movie called Hacksaw Ridge.
Mm. Yeah,
Take
yeah,
a
yeah,
take
yeah.
a watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually wrote
Mm,
a review on that movie,
yeah.
about that movie. I mean,
So
it's a really interesting movie. But yeah, in Chile it wasn't too. Let's say it wasn't very well received because to us it was like very American, right? It didn't speak
mhm.
to us in any sort of way. But my take on the movie was that for you Americans to have someone as Desmond does, it's really something really great. I think if I were American, it would make me very proud to be to have him in the history pages where I'm from, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Man, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you know who Desmond Doss is. He's an amazing man.
mm,
And that's the thing, right? In history, there's a lot of men who have done great things, great positive things. It's not even just about, we spent a lot of time talking about all
mm-hmm,
these conquerors, right? Alexander
mm,
the Great,
mm,
Attila the Hun, who else? Even Napoleon Bonaparte, he gets sprinkled in there a little
mm,
bit, but not as much. And the reason why is because, Attila, he's the one that has all the women, right? He's the one
mm,
that had all these different children. Now, of course, what a lot of people like to conveniently leave out is that the moment he died, all of those children fought each other for his land and destroyed his dynasty. But shh, I thought he managed to have sex with a bunch of women, right?
mm.
So that's the thing. But then I'm trying to remember. I don't know if his name was Admiral Yi or Captain Yi, but there is this one. I don't know if you heard about him, and it's fine. Um,
I don't remember.
he basically fought off. I think he like single-handedly Admiral Yi. There it is. So in Korea, he's a Korean naval and military leader who basically fought off the Japanese for years. He almost just he saved Korea
Mm,
from the Japanese. If I remember if it was the Japanese, yeah, I think it was the Japanese. He was phenomenally intelligent, great
Mm-hmm.
skills. Every company that he was assigned to, he
Mm-hmm.
drilled them into perfection.
Mm.
Um, he was phenomenal. It's an amazing story,
Yeah,
right?
I was just
And so,
looking him, and
mhm.
yeah, Admiral Yi San-sin was
Yes,
Korean admiral and military general famed for his victories against the Japanese Navy. Yeah.
yes. So
Mm.
it was a great. I'm not gonna spoil what happened. I encourage you guys to go look up how amazing that story is. And I know just off the top of my head,
Mm.
right? I'm using military leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it doesn't even have to be military men who just fight in these great battles. Although that's a very clear, I guess you could say, like indication of like their valor and
Mm-hmm.
their skills, right? And what they're doing. You have the dads. I know I had them in a recent video
Mm-hmm.
against well, I was talking about Hamza actually, where the dads came to the school because the kids were fighting a whole bunch, and all they did was just
Oh
like
yeah,
walk
yeah,
up and
yeah.
down the hallway
That
with
that
them.
that was in Chicago. Am I wrong?
I think so. If
Yeah.
not, Chicago, somewhere else. But
Yeah, I remember watching some videos and it was like this dad energy, right?
hmm
That the children wouldn't mess around with them around because
yeah,
you won't mess with a dad. And
yeah,
I thought it was like yeah, the things got out of hand, but it was at the end of the day very wholesome
hmm
because all you needed was the right uh, you know, right male models, right? The men who would, you know,
men who cared. Yep.
men who cared, but more than that, that would tell you where to, you know, aim your male energy, right? Where to
hmm
direct it instead of, fighting each other like animals, right?
hmm
It's not conducive to anything, and I thought that story was really interesting, at least for my part, especially again in this world where the feminist let's say narrative has taken such a stronghold on social issues. Um, Seeing men, dads especially, having a positive impact and a concrete impact, something tangible, was, to me at least, really inspiring, right?
Yeah.
And there were, you know, I remember that in the video I saw, they would often say that to, you know, to break the ice, they would come up with dad jokes, and I thought that
hmm
was brilliant and hilarious. And it tells you something about male wisdom that comes from age, at de-escalating things that women don't have a clue how to do. Right? They don't
hmm
know when things start to to get out of hand. They have no idea. They don't know any recourse to de-escalate them. But we as men, as we have to deal with physical confrontation from early age,
That's a good point.
with age, um, learn to de-escalate things because we know how stupid the other guy is, right?
hmm
So we empathize with him and say and we tell him, you know, I get that you're angry, but let's do this way, not this way because it's going to be very destructive for
hmm
all of us, right? Yeah, I was thinking about that in terms of inspirations that you named, and I think well, uh, something I think strikes to the core of this issue is that our culture is, and I'm not going to say this in a, let's say, in a bad way, but it's very uh, American, right?
hmm
Here in Chile, we don't have much culture in terms of the things that we in the entertainment that we consume, right? It almost everything comes either from America or Japan in terms of anime. Um, but I think one of the main problems with the American narrative is that you have this narrative of the conqueror, right? You always glorify the conqueror rather
Mhm.
than the defender, right? Because the examples that you gave in terms of people that have inspired you have been defenders. Ji San-sin defended the Korean people from the Japanese, and Desmond Doss, right,
Mhm.
defended life. He wanted to protect life. He didn't want to uh, go abroad, right, overseas and conquer, Germany. He wanted
Mhm.
to protect the lives of his people, right? And nowadays, it seems to me that we don't value that. We don't value defending what's good, what's right. We value the conqueror, right? The Andrew
Mhm.
Tates, because Andrew Tate, at the end of the day, he's a conqueror, right?
Yeah.
He's not a defender of virtue. He's not a defender of freedom. By the way, he's a conqueror. He wants to get the things that he wants. He wants to get the women that he wants, and and we live in a culture nowadays that glorifies that. And
Great point. Yeah, that is great point.
yeah, and I think the Japanese get this much better than us because usually their heroes are the defenders, right?
That's true. Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Anime definitely influenced me a lot. You're
Yeah,
100% correct. There's a lot of honor and virtue in most anime characters
yeah.
or most main characters.
Yeah, for example, I can name you three anime characters, male protagonists that do this. They defend Goku, Saitama, and Naruto, right? They don't want to, Naruto doesn't want to invade the other village, right? Goku doesn't want to conquer. I think the planet was Namek,
Yeah.
and Saitama doesn't want to fight to take down other people, right? He improved on himself and decided to be a hero because he wanted to protect people, and that's what I think the the Western narrative lacks today. More Supermans, right? Superman is
Yeah, they deconstructed superheroes so much. A
yeah.
lot of the times it feels like they just kind of missed the point of them.
I think they tend to miss the point. Most Hollywood films in this regard because they tend to focus too much on the villain, right? I think they have glamorized. Let's say I'm not sure if I'm using the right
I think so.
word. Yeah,
Glamour, yeah, I think so.
they've glamorized the villain, right? It wasn't the movie Superman that was a success for the critics. It was Joker, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And then we have Disney coming up with films such as Maleficent, right? And
Yeah.
what was the other one? Cruella de Vil, right?
Mhm.
This insistence on the villain rather than the hero, and the sad part to me is that I'm, let's say, I'm quite inspired by Sleeping Beauty, the tale.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
I think it's the old stories, right? The older versions of the story are quite interesting in when it comes to male and female dynamics, right? When it comes to love, when it comes to, you know, doing what's right in the case of the prince, right? Who has to, be courageous to rescue the princess.
Mhm.
Um, and the thing that offends me the most with Maleficent is that the original Sleeping Beauty, the original Disney movie, the character of Maleficent was created for that movie. She didn't exist in any form of
Mm.
literature. And I thought it was really genius because,
Hmm.
to me at least, she represented everything that was wrong. She was the incarnation of evil, and that's
Hmm.
all she needed to be, right? She
That's
didn't,
fair. Yeah.
yeah, she didn't want to, she didn't put a curse I, on Aurora because
Uh-huh.
Aurora did her something personally that offended Maleficent. She just did it because out of pure spite, right?
Yes.
There
Hmm.
was no reason or rhyme to her. She was just plain evil, and she worked very well in those bounds. And then they
Hmm.
had to give her, her own
This
backstory.
sad
Yeah,
tale that makes her this misguided hero that she
yeah,
she's actually was a good guy the whole time. She wasn't as villainous. She was like the protector of the forests and trees and stuff. It is
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Whenever they
Mhm.
they do these films, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm gonna let you go
No,
on because
no, go
you're
please.
you're spitting, you're cooking, you're doing a great job. But it's really interesting that when they do these like hero story, I'm sorry, these villain stories, when they try to
Mhm.
retool these villains, they try to make them morally gray. They still just end up always doing good stuff. I think just example after example.
Mm.
You have Venom is just
Mm.
basically a black gooey alien defender,
Yeah.
right? Like he wasn't the anti Spider-Man he was supposed to be. He's just this odd gooey alien monster in the
Mm.
Sony films. He is just a good guy. Eddie Brock is just a good guy.
Mm.
You can't help but root for him. That's just how they wrote him.
Mm.
Or at the very least he's likable. I don't know if you'd say you have to like him. That might be too much, but
Yeah.
he's
But I know
far
what
from
you
a bad
mean.
guy.
I know what you mean.
You have Morbius, right? You got
Oh.
yeah, that was goofy. But you have
Yeah.
Morbius, who again
Mm.
should have been a villain, or he should be a bad guy that can't control
Mm.
himself, so Spider-Man has to stop him. He
Mm.
instead is like this doctor who finds like synthetic blood, or he's kind of has to control himself, and he's trying to find a cure and all this nonsense. And then they
Mm.
add his brother, who's the bad guy actually, not
Mm.
Morbius. It's like, okay, well, you always got to make him look like a good fight.
Yeah.
And then
Mm.
Shazam, I'm not Shazam, Black Adam, same
Mm.
thing. Black Adam is morally dubious, but he still does more good. He still fights the bad guys. He
Mm.
still liberates the city. People still like him. It's like
Mm.
you keep trying to take these bad guys, but in the end, they end up still just doing good things for people. They're just like heroes that are kind of mean sometimes.
Yeah,
And if that's the case, then you've kind of defeated the purpose of the character.
and it takes what makes those characters special in the first place.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I was a child, I read the Maximum Carnage comic.
Yes, I love Maximum Carnage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really fucking great. Sorry for using that word, but
Hmm.
yeah, to me it was like, oh god damn, this is
Yes, I
way too
love
good.
Maximum Carnage. It was You're right. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I always thought as I was growing up that I would seriously love a theater adaptation of that. A movie adaptation, and when they announced the first Venom movie, I was really hyped to see Venom, right?
Hmm.
Not this like morally dubious guy who is he good, is he bad? No, he's supposed to be bad because he's jealous of Spider-Man, right?
Exactly.
He's overcompensating. He's like this representation of actual toxic masculinity back in
You
the
would think, right? Yeah.
90s,
Hmm.
right? And then comes the Carnage, who is like this
Just absolute,
lunatic.
just extreme. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Lunatic.
he's like a psychopath, a force of nature that needs to be stopped. And instead of doing that, they watered them down. They make
Yep.
them more docile, stuff like that. They make
Yep.
them more family friendly, and it
The goo.
drops
Yeah.
them of their character. It drops them of what made them special in the first place, I think.
Exactly. I think if we're going to talk about Maximum Carnage, one of the things that is the linchpin of Carnage as a
Mm-hmm.
character or villain is that he forces Spider-Man to work with Venom. Like if you
Mm.
go to the root of
Yeah.
it, he was such a threat. He was so powerful that these two people that hate each other had to turn and say, "All right, look, man, we got to work together because this guy, he's just too much. We got
Mm.
to take him down." That's what made Carnage want to just so amazing. Another
Mm.
thing that makes Carnage really interesting that a lot of people don't get
Hmm.
is Carnage is one of the few Spider-Man villains that's truly murderous.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
Spider-Man villains want something, like they're trying to obtain something, whether it's like money, whether it's world domination, whether they're trying to
Mm.
capture someone, they're a mercenary. That's what they're doing, right? There's an
Hmm.
objective. Carnage says, "No, I just want to kill people."
Yeah.
That was just so different than
I, I,
most of the bad guys Spider-Man fights.
and it was such a breaking conventions because, again, even the Joker has some schemes, right? Something that he
Yes.
wants to pull off, like
Mm-hmm.
spreading anarchy or something like that. Carnage was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna kill people, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's my gist, nothing more. And all the others had to, play around on their villainy, right?
Yeah.
For example, the Green Goblin would do, wicked stuff, right? But he had a certain logic to it. He was a
Yes.
psychopath by all means, but he didn't just go around murdering people. Carnage
Yeah. There
did.
was there was a gold. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and now that you mention it, it's really interesting that this, like, again, to me, it's this force of nature, right? This threat that forces Spider-Man to work with someone who is demonstrably stronger than him, right, Venom,
Mm-hmm.
and to sort of guide him into becoming a better person, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but the thing was really interesting because Venom by that point was already established as a villain, right? We know
Yes.
he was a major threat in the Spider-Man universe, but Spider-Man had no recourse but to work with him. I mean, so that made it very, very interesting, and to come around to Maleficent, here's where Hollywood misses entirely the point because they give the background to a new background to characters like Cruella and Maleficent, but but then they grab another character and make them absolutely reputable, right?
Yes.
The
That's a
new
good
stand for
point.
villainy. And in the case
Mm-hmm.
of Maleficent, who was the great bad guy after all? It was the king,
Mm-hmm.
the man of, because of course it needed to be the man who led Maleficent to do wrong, right? It
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be because she was rotten to the core. It because
That's
a
yeah.
man did her wrong, and that to me is just you know
It's very heavy-handed too, as a whole
ye-
feminist icon.
yeah, because again, there is something really interesting on evil characters that are by themselves evil, right? Like the first
Mm-hmm.
version of Maleficent and Emperor Palpatine, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Palpatine has no redeeming qualities, right? But that's what makes him interesting, because he's like the George Lucas, take on the devil, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's there to manipulate the tragic hero Anakin and stuff like that. He doesn't care for others. He just cares for him taking over the galaxy, and that's it. And I don't know why do we have to, let's say, reinvent the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's already invented. Let's work on that. But this, this it's sort of like a compulsion on behalf of Hollywood of making the bad guy the hero. Why would you do that? Do we have the hero ready? Let's
That's
work
like
with him, and let's
perfect.
make
Yeah.
the yeah and let's
That
make
is
the
the best way to put that. We have the hero already.
yeah, that's the thing. I think it has to do with deconstructing things of um, lower people's morale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demoralization. I don't know if you've watched this video of this former KGB spy Yuri Bezmenov.
Mm-mm.
You should. It's really interesting. If you have time later, look for Yuri Bezmenov. He gives a really insightful, let's say, lesson on how subversion works in terms
Hmm.
of propaganda and stuff. And he mentions Chile as an example of a country that stood against the, let's say, the communist revolution. Something
Hmm.
that in America, luckily you haven't been subjected to, but don't celebrate as of yet, because from where I'm standing, I see some similarities between the more radical, elements of your society that want this, this revolution to take place in America. And the first thing that you should know is that if you think that you're, let's say, invulnerable to revolution, then you're already lost. Then the revolution is going to happen either way, right? But when it comes to subversion, right? And the main point and the thing that I want to ask you is that, um, do you think perhaps we are exaggerating when we speak of all this, right? About the red pill, about feminism. Do you think it's been somewhat exaggerated because we inhabit perhaps echo chambers all the news that we are fed have to do with these sort of things, or do you think that feminism and, let's say, this attempt to demoralize the West is real, is true, and we should take measures into that?
Uh, can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, yeah, of course. So we've been talking about lots of things about feminism, right? Demoralization, the red
Hmm.
pill, Andrew stuff like Andrew Tate, right? And the main narrative of feminism, and I would say even the mainstream media, right, is that being male is wrong, basically,
Hmm.
um, and we should do better and stuff like that. My question to you is, um, taking into consideration that the tension between the sexes has never been great across the globe, in my opinion. Do you think our position in terms of feminism is could be perhaps exaggerated? Maybe it's not as bad as we think it is, or do you think that it is the case that uh, feminism may be a threat to society, perhaps?
Um, my honest opinion is
Mm-hmm.
no, we haven't over exaggerated at all. I think which might be obvious coming from me. I used to make multiple different, anti-feminist
Mm-hmm.
videos, so but no, I don't think there's anything good within feminism. Feminism doesn't
Nothing
seek the
good about
good.
it.
Nothing. Feminism
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seek even equality by their own metric.
Mm-hmm.
They're not concerned with the issues that men have. They're only concerned with the issues that women have, and particularly, it's always been mostly white women. It isn't really until recently do you have the sprinkling in of intersectionality, they call it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where they say that you know being black and being a woman, or like they have the oppression hierarchy at this
Mm-hmm.
point, being disabled and being black and being a woman, that's like that's three debuffs basically. um that's a more recent thing
Mm-hmm.
that did not exist in the history of feminism. Even if you go all the way back into the voting, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, some women suffragettes,
Mm-hmm.
or woman suffrage, this was all about white women voting. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't care nothing about women as a class.
Mm-hmm.
They cared about white women.
Mm-hmm.
Some of their arguments, I had learned this recently. I was doing some research into it. Some of their arguments as to why women should be able to vote is so they can cancel out the vote of the Negroes, so they can cancel out black men's votes. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
care. They were racist. They didn't care. They were. They made numerous arguments. I have to go
Wow.
reread the article. They made numerous articles, numerous versions. They were frustrated that black men could vote, but they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. So it's like, no. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, unless you want to defend that white racism is fine because it was for women, I
Mm-hmm.
don't see how you can defend that. oh, women got the vote, so it's okay if the suffragettes were racist. We corrected later.
Mm.
Excuse me? What are you talking about? Because if that's the case, then can't we just defend? Okay, slavery was fine because black people got to be in America, and were eventually freed. Is that how you want to play this game? Like,
Yeah, that would be, some mental gymnastic at its finest.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
what you say in that regard to me, wow, I didn't know about that part of that feminist argument way back then.
hmm
Um, and if you say, well, I can't believe it. Of course, I need to be doing my own research on that, but
oh yeah,
you know, it doesn't sound far fetched to me. Um, but what's interesting to me is that, well, feminism is mostly a left wing thing, right?
hmm
It's not a movement that came from the right, because the right would say, mostly the conservatives would say, no, the women should stay at home, and that's it. And most female conservatives kind of agree on that, actually. It's really interesting, but to
well, they agree because they benefit.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
here's the more what I would say honestly
Hmm.
more reasonable take. And that
Hmm.
reasonable take is men and women should work together
Mm.
to make sure their children are protected.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter who stays home.
Mm.
Doesn't matter at all, actually, because women have every capacity to work as a lawyer, doctor, or any other
Mm.
comfortable different job, even at a call center if you really wanted to, if it
Mm.
earned enough money. Women have every ability and opportunity to earn money.
Mm.
Okay, fair enough. So why is it then that they can't use the money, which is entire purpose is to be spent and used for provision for
Mm.
their families? Why is it
Mm.
that a man's money is the family's money, but a woman's money is her money? That's silly. It's
Mm.
absolutely goofy. There's no logical reason for this at all, other than the fact that you want to maintain these traditional you want to maintain the benefits of
Mm.
being taken care of by men, but in a pure logical, reasonable, rational world, there is no logic behind women not just being breadwinners. Nothing
Mm.
stops them. Absolutely
Yeah.
nothing stops them except the
Especially,
way they feel.
yeah, especially nowadays, where, and especially in the West, where women have
Mhm.
more opportunities than anywhere
Mhm.
in the world, anywhere, right?
Yep.
There's no time in history where women have been as liberated as they are in the West. So, it, like,
Yeah.
most of the grievances now have to do with, with, making things actually worse for for the two
Really,
sexes.
yeah. So it's like my thing is I don't really, like I said, I don't really care if men are breadwinners or women are breadwinners. I think that men are more want to do that. I
Mm-hmm.
think men, despite all the talk about how we're supposed to be leaders, I think men seem to have a desire to serve a lot more than people really like to admit, or more particularly the red pill likes to admit.
Mm.
I think that men do want to go out and just do good things for women and help women and
Mm.
have families. I think the more I talk to them, the clearer that becomes to me. So I'm not saying that men have to just stay at home and never do anything. What I'm saying is that they should work together. Like it shouldn't be too far fetched
Mm.
to be able to converse and have conversations and treat this person you quote unquote
Mm.
are supposed to love
Mm.
very well.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Again, caring for each other seems to be the key to all of this, and it's something that, as a society, I think we've forgotten about.
Mhm.
Um, I'm so sorry. I'm still, quite shocked by the feminist argument about racism, and
Oh.
I wanted to avoid the subject of racism because
No, it's fine. Yeah.
no, I mean, because I think everything that could be said about racism has been already said,
Yeah.
and I think Morgan Freeman said it best, that the best way to deal with racism, it was not to talk about racism anymore,
Yeah.
right? because of course there are going to be some racists in society, in every single society, even here in Chile, where I'm not the standard, right?
Hmm.
I'm way too white for the typical Chilean. Um, Everyone is mixed race here, but a couple of years ago, we have an influx of Haitian migrants, and I started noticing that people who were brown skin again acted, like racists before them, right? They would,
Hmm.
treat them very different based on the color of the skin. And to me, it was like, yeah, they weren't the norm, right?
Hmm.
It wasn't like the vast majority of Chileans were hostile to Haitian, but to me, it was like really weird, right? Because all my life, I was surrounded by all kinds of people, right? All ethnicities. Um, it's not like in Argentina where racism is rampant. But here in Chile, I thought we were used to people coming from all places of the world, and I think the best course of action in this case is to stop focusing on the race thing. You know,
Hmm.
um, from little, I think my parents taught me that I should judge people based on what they stand for, right? Rather than
Exactly. Hmm.
the color of the skin. It's not, again. It's not conducive to anything to focus so much on the color of people's skin, and in that regard, I have something I would like to ask you, since we brought up the subject of racism, and it was like I grew up watching American cartoons as a child, right?
Hmm.
And one that caught my attention early on was Static Shock, actually. And I remember how they for the vast majority of the run, races were never brought into subject, right? They never talked about it until they had an episode where I think Static's friend,
His friend's dad,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he was a racist, right?
Hmm.
And I thought um, they in the show they dealt with the subject very good, very well, right?
Hmm.
And my perspective on things was that in America, again, coming from someone who's never been in America, but
Hmm.
mostly based on your movies, cartoons, and stuff, was that racism was something of the past, right? It was something
Hmm.
out perhaps of the 50s. But
Hmm.
nowadays, I think you're even more obsessed with race than ever before, right?
That's a really good outside perspective. That's it's interesting
Mm-hmm,
because yeah,
mm-hmm,
I guess I never thought about it like that
mm-hmm,
because for me at a very young age, we
mm-hmm,
watched different documentaries and different movies on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
mm-hmm,
and I just really internalized, you don't judge
mm-hmm,
people by the color of their skin, but the
mm,
content of their character. And I
mm,
guess I actually looked up to Dr. Martin Luther King so much. I was like, you know, I want to be
mm,
that kid.
mm.
I want to fulfill his dream.
Yeah.
So for me, racism, that's just not even a thing. I don't even think about it. I think I make jokes about
Mm-hmm.
white people sometimes. I make jokes about black people. Too.
Mm,
I make jokes about black and white people
mm,
because that's just mostly my experience. I mean, hanging out with
mm-hmm,
black people and white people. I don't really have a good frame of reference for like other races of people. But if I
mm-hmm.
did, I would. So but like me, I'm just like, and I'm encouraging to
Mm,
everyone, I want everyone to live a good life. So to
mm,
me, I'm not at all concerned with race.
mm,
I do understand that other people are because I just had to deal
mm,
with it. Like being a
mm,
black person, sometimes people expect the worst from me. I've
Mm.
learned. You
You've
got people.
seen prejudice from others projected into
I've
you,
a
onto you.
little bit. So
Mm.
like I haven't had like
Mm.
too many awful experiences like
Mm-hmm.
directly, but from time to time, I
Mm.
encounter people. Like I said, they more expect the
Mm-hmm.
worst. They don't really expect me to be the good person that I am. So that kind of happens from time to time.
Based on
Uh,
your on the skin of, I mean on the color of your skin.
yeah.
Mm. That
Like
that
I'll
to
give you
me.
a
Mm,
brief
sorry.
example. I remember just to kind of give you a good example, a good
Mm-hmm.
thought. I remember a couple of years ago, I lost my cell phone in the mall. I made a video about this. I don't remember what I titled it, but
Mm-hmm.
I lost my cell phone in the mall. I
Mm-hmm.
found someone else's cell phone, and I turned it in. So while I was
Mm.
walking through the mall, the police, I guess they got the perfect description of me. They found me, and they pulled me back to the bookstore that I was at, and I
Mm-hmm.
told them I turned the cell phone in, and they were just like, "Oh, you did? You whatever. All right, come on, let's go." So
Mm.
I was like, "Man, when we get back up here, they're gonna feel real stupid."
Mm.
So I get up to the front desk. The lady's like, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "Did he turn his cell phone in?" She's like, "Yes." And they were just confused.
God
They
damn
was
it.
like they were like, "Wait, he turned the cell
Mm.
phone in?" And then another
Mm.
security guard comes in, another mall cop comes in. And you got these two police officers talking to each other, the mall cop and a security guard, and they're all
Mm.
just like, "He turned the phone in?" "Yeah, he turned the cell phone in." They're like, "Really? He turned the cell phone in?" "Yeah, he turned the cell phone in." I'm
Dude,
just
to me,
like,
it's such a cartoon what you're describing. It
"I
sounds
know,
like
yeah."
it sounds like taken out of a South Park episode. You know?
I was there and I was like, "Yo,
God
why are they
damn.
acting like cartoons?" But yeah, man, they were so incredulous at the fact
Damn.
that I turned the cell phone in. I was like,
Uh,
I mean, it is what it is.
to me, it's really alien, as you said, because um, you know, as I grew up not in a, let's say, like a, a progressive family, right? Um, but something that a family that didn't hold many prejudices about other peoples, right? For example, to my father, if any of my brothers brought uh, a girl with a darker skin, it was of no it was not even an issue, right? It wasn't something to be talked about, right?
Hmm.
It was just her, right? And the same with sexism. I never lived throughout my infancy anything that remotely suggested me that people were could be actually sexist. And when I got into college, right, I started listening to many of my female classmates' experiences with sexism, and it was and to me it was like, what the hell? We are living in the medieval times, actually. Um, when the story that you tell me, to me it's like it's like I remember I can sort of get this prejudice against black people in terms of this statistics of
But even
crime
then,
ratio,
statistics
right?
don't really reflect it. Actually, no.
Yeah,
If you
but
analyze
mm-hmm,
it, you would find that
mm-hmm,
it's actually still not reasonable.
yeah,
It's a
no, no,
stereotype
mm-hmm,
because of like rap music and the portrayal of black people in the
yeah,
media.
yeah,
But if you
that,
look
that
at the data,
mhm.
it's not reflective.
Yeah, that's my point, right? Because
Hmm.
what I think there are two points of view in terms of data, right?
Hmm.
One that was brought by I don't know if you read the work of Thomas Sowell. I
Thomas
think
Howell, yeah.
yeah, he brings this right something as a consequence of black population um, mostly growing up without fathers, right? Without a father figure, right? And there is this breadtuber. It's called ContraPoints. I don't know if you know
Uh-huh.
about her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
she
know.
said something I thought it was really interesting. It was about the narrative, right? The narrative behind your argument, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if we spoke solely on data, right, on crime rates and stuff like that, right wingers would bring up the the black to white criminal ratio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is the narrative behind, right? The counterpoints would say that those people will bring that data to justify their racist view, right? When Thomas Sowell would do so to say to point out the real problem with Black Americans growing in America, right? And to me it's really interesting because my you said when you got lost in the mall, you were young, right? You were a child, something like
Oh,
that.
I didn't get lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was a teenager. I lost my cell phone.
Yeah. Again, my first instinct would be to say, um, if you're lost, then you're lost, right? To ask you what's going on, right? What's with the cell phone? Did you turn it in? Okay, I'm going to take your word for it, right? I'm not going to go an extra step and make an ass of myself asking you, did you really turn the phone? It's such a cartoonish way of speaking. I want to take a question that someone in the audience asked, and it's actually my girlfriend. She
Mhm.
said hi.
I'm glad I said hi.
um, if your experience with racism happens only where you live, or if you think it happens too abroad. I don't think you can answer for abroad, but do you think it's something that's localized, or do you think it's across America in that regard?
um, I can't say.
Mm.
I don't think so. Well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think most people will experience an overt form of racism where people will call you like
Mm.
slurs or people will deny you job opportunities. I think for the most part,
Mm.
what really is going on are more subtle influences by stereotypes. So it's
Mm.
more it's not that they're going to like hunt you down and like beat you or they're gonna
Mm.
like spit on you or anything like that. It's more they're gonna have preconceived notions of you
Mm.
and
It's
they're
more
gonna
subtle.
treat you, yeah, they're gonna
Mm.
treat you accordingly, quote unquote.
Mm.
That's more, I think, the racism most people would deal
Mm.
with.
It's like I think his name was Daryl Davis, the musician,
Maybe.
uh, who who's who I think he's credited for turning several former members of the Klan
Mm,
um, to non-racists, right?
that's awesome.
His experience is really amazing. He's a wonderful man. He should be more renowned as a source of inspiration. I think. At
Yeah,
least
here we
he's
go. So
inspired me.
again, everyone keeps saying we don't have any, and then we find we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Was he the one guy who
Mhm.
there's this one video called how one black man
Yeah,
defeated the
that
KKK.
guy.
That guy?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
I remember.
He to me,
I love that
he's
story.
amazing because. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip.
Mhm.
So, one of the main thing the main thing I get from him is that often the best solution to problems is talk it out, right? Try to know where the other comes from, right? And I'm going to bring this all down way back to where we discussed about Elliot Roger, right?
Mhm.
The incel thing, the red pill. I think the main problem is that nowadays we don't listen to each other, right?
Yeah.
I think the main problem about Elliot Roger is that he had nobody to uh, to to talk things through, right?
And kind of tell him it'll be all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had no moral support, right? No one who got interested in him. And Daryl Davis, what he did was to that he got way too curious in how the
Mm-hmm.
clan worked and got to know the members of the clan, went to their rallies and all that. And I thought that was really admirable from him
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't, protest in the streets against the clan. He wanted to understand how the clan operated and how it is that people can hate someone who doesn't know anything about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? That to me was really interesting, and I want to bring this back to the issue about men and women, incels, MGTOW, and the main problem is that we're not listening to each other. I think women are
Yeah.
not listening to men when it comes to their issues, and men. I think we as men have a greater grasp at their grievances than they do of us, but
Yeah.
still we don't know them, right? Because we don't
Yeah.
listen to them. Um,
I would definitely say there's a lot of like trying to understand them as a conquest, you could
mm,
say. There's trying to like understand their programming,
mm,
understand how they tick, but not really like relating to them and
mm,
not really like trying to have relationships with them.
mm,
I would say that's a huge error in
mm,
you would say like in the manosphere and like red pill, black
mm.
pill spaces.
Yeah.
There's like even the incels, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like breaking them down and understanding how they're attracted to men. That's sure, fair enough. But the actual relationship with the human being, like the
Mm-hmm.
actual lady that's here, there's
Mm-hmm.
no analysis because to them they
Mm,
like that. Well, I can't even get to step one in the first place.
mm,
So from their point of view, it's like, well, what's the point? I'm just trying to prove that, they are indeed shallow or that looks are everything.
mm,
So at least they have an excuse. The red pillars, on the other hand, they don't really have an excuse, I don't feel, because it's
mm,
like the whole point, the whole objective
mm,
was to have relationships with women. I
mm,
guess not. I guess the whole point was just to have sex with them. Because
mm.
just having sex with women isn't the same as like having relationships or having friendships with them or like hanging around them.
Yeah,
Um, and so,
because at the end of the day, they complain that women are not empathetic to our issues, right? But
mhm.
neither are they,
That's a
right?
good point.
I'm in some MGTOW sites, in some MGTOW communities, and all
Mhm.
they talk about is all their theories about women are explained through hypergamy, right?
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing else to understand, and that's
Oh, no,
not
they're
just
far yeah.
it, right?
They are
I
far more
was.
complex than just hypergamy. Honestly, you
Mm,
could go a step further and probably say, there's probably, which is just humanity,
mm-hmm,
a whole bunch of just different archetypes and a whole bunch of
mm,
different motivations. Like, it's not really reasonable to suggest that women purely work on a very hypergamous framework
mm,
because they don't.
no.
If hypergamy is defined as a woman's desire to get the best possible option, then again, I can say they absolutely do not always act hypergamous. I
No.
would say the vast majority of them don't act hypergamously.
Mm,
Vast majority of them, if it were true that women acted hypergamously and they only wanted the best possible option, the world would be a far better place. Sociopaths,
mm,
psychopaths, narcissistics, they wouldn't stand a chance in the mating realm. Women would
mm,
be like, wait, I'm supposed to get impregnated by you? You who don't care, you who just have sex with me and you just left, you who just
mm,
keeps leaving me on red. You don't care about me. You barely even talk to me. All you do is flirt. All you do is call me to just have sex. That's hypergamy? No way.
mm,
No. No.
mm,
No woman would ever be in an abusive relationship. The moment she got socially isolated, she would have been like, wait, hold on. This isn't a good idea. The moment he put his hand on her, oh no, I'm supposed to have his baby? Nope.
mm,
No, I'm not. Leave. If
mm,
women, if their brains were truly this logical, if they truly were that reductionist on men, they would never complain about toxicity. They couldn't.
mm,
It would be abnormal. Like it would be abnormal for any woman to ever complain about how bad men are. They would just be like, "Oh yeah, bad men, whatever. I don't deal with them." Game set
mm,
match. And men would naturally evolve and develop to be better people.
Yeah.
Take into consideration the whole code of conduct of chivalry, right? Of
Mm.
like courtly love and courtly
Mm.
manners that the
Mm.
Europeans did. Like,
Mm.
where did that come from if not from women selecting that behavior? Evidently, they must have. They didn't
Mm.
have all these different bad boys and all this different nonsense. They wanted men to actually court them and treat them well.
Mm.
And it makes sense in that social environment too, because it's like you need a man that has some status, right? Or you need a man that has some strength. Like,
Mm.
knights weren't always particularly high status people, but and even if it's not a knight, you need men in your life. And these men, again, there were standards, there were rules you
Mm.
had to adhere to be an attractive mate. You didn't just show up just because you had a sword. You had to court them, right?
Mm.
That's where the whole idea of courting comes from.
Mm.
So it's like there were layers to this stuff. It wasn't just that, oh, I just need women didn't just like mechanically, I need the best male. I
Mm.
need them. That's not how they operate. Most ladies, especially now, well, I would say now,
Mm.
I can't really speak to the past, only so much as
Mhm.
just history and results, but a lot of women now, they mate select based on just like how they feel and their desire to be special. So
Mm.
some women will, it's like there's not a marrying of the two. Well, a lot of ladies, it's a zero sum game. So it's either I'm with you because you have resources. That's like beta bucks thing they say.
Mm.
Or I'm with you because you make me feel special. That's the alpha fucks thing, right?
Mm.
That's the alpha smashing thing. Like
Mm.
that's what gets them there. I feel special that I'm with a quote unquote high value male, that gives me all this stuff or gives me all this attention, or
Mm.
I'm special because I'm different than all those girls. That's that motivation right
Mm.
there. Of course, the problem is you can't play a zero sum game with humans because humans are more complex than that. If
Yeah.
you go on the extreme of the alpha, who's just like, and obviously I don't really think alpha is the best word, but just for this conversation, if you go to the extreme
Mhm.
of just the alpha guy, who just, only wants to have sex with you, then that's all you're gonna get.
Mm.
You're just gonna get banged out. But if you only go to the beta, for only the resources, then you're not gonna like have any sexual attraction. You're not gonna respect him. You're not really gonna like him all that much because he's kind of simmering in your point of view. He's kind of weak-willed. You don't really like that. Here's the thing: those two people don't have to be separate. You can
Mm.
get a man that is kind, strong, disciplined, and treats you well. He's
Mm.
not one or the other. It's not, oh, I need one just for provision. No, just get the same man.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
mutually exclusive.
There are some true nice guys out there, and
Mhm.
it I think the priorities are misplaced here
Mhm.
in terms of women and their strategies to find a partner, right? I think the main problem is that they think the material stuff it's what's important, right? Either
Yes.
he's broke or not, either he's earning, I don't know, 50K a year, or he's worthless, right? And then what happens then is that they try to equalize themselves to us men, right?
Yes.
By trying to have sexual relationships with as many men as they can, because if we do it, then it must be good, right? And
Yeah.
it's
It's a
like,
lot of male competition as
yeah,
if it's reasonable. Yeah.
yeah, and the hard truth is no, it's not good for men either,
Exactly.
right? And I think one of your videos that impacted me a lot was I don't know which one was it, but you said something that has followed me around ever since. And it was that you said something along the lines that you should always have sexual relationships with someone who you would be willing to have a child with.
Yes.
If that someone is someone who would you would hate hearing the news that she's pregnant, or he got you pregnant, right? Um, then you should avoid having sex with those kinds of people. And I thought
Exactly right. Yep.
yeah, and you articulated it in such a manner that it made sense to me, because I was let's say that that guy who would, sleep around with women and feel miserable by the end of the weekend, and I would say, and I would start to feel, disgusted by my own actions, by what I was doing, and I had you said that, and I didn't change overnight. Obviously, it takes time. It takes,
Hmm.
you know, work, but it followed me around, and the more, experiences I had with women, which were all, bad,
Hmm.
the more, that stuck in my head, because it was true. You should, and this is, I think, good advice for every single one in the world. You should only have sex with people who you would be willing to have a child with. If the Because again, yeah, we have contraceptives nowadays. We can avoid pregnancy, but if it's someone you don't know, there's you don't have that certainty, right?
Hmm.
You don't have the certainty that that person is taking proper, let's say, measures
That's true.
to yeah,
A lot of contraceptive fail. Well, maybe I would say a lot, but they can fail, and it only needs to fail one time to make a whole person.
yeah.
So,
You know what? That's something that makes me really curious, because I've been using contraceptives with my girlfriend
mhm,
for over a year, and it's never failed.
mhm.
There's never been a time where, for example, I had a condom break, or that the pill didn't work, right?
Yeah, well, you have to remember,
Mm-hmm.
well, for one, she's on birth control, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty effective. But for
Mm.
two, humans can only get pregnant like 1 day out of the month.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, that's the
as it turns
thing.
out,
That's the
yeah.
thing.
So
Getting
here's
some.
the
Sorry.
yeah, the irony, one of the biggest ironies, at least I think is really ironic,
Mm-hmm.
is how rare
Mm.
pregnancy actually should be, quote unquote. But it's like you'll have these one night stands with these dude, and then just you're just pregnant. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to me because I remember when I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid, when I
Mm-hmm.
was like a kid, I was a teenager, and you would always hear like, "We're trying," like, "How's having a baby? We're trying," and I was always like, "You don't like, you just don't. Does he? Is it the wrong hole? Is he not doing it long enough? Like, what do you mean you're trying?" And
Yeah.
and when I learned
Mm.
that, as it turns out, again, humans, women, they only ovulate for like 1 day, then
Mm.
I was like, oh, that it is actually hard. And it's really
Yeah.
funny that it's that, quote unquote, it's hard, but you have so many different pregnancy scares, right? There's so much
Mm.
contraceptives. So it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
interesting fact about life, you know?
Yeah, again, as you said, it's not easy to get someone pregnant. But a friend of mine said, best, the chances of getting a woman pregnant are, uh, you know, inversely, proportionally inverse, um, to your desires of getting her pregnant. In other words, if you want to get her pregnant, it's going to be really really hard. But if you don't want her to get pregnant, it will happen like this. All the magical circumstances that need to happen, all the planets will align for
Mhm.
just that occasion, and
That's
it's
hilarious.
yeah. And the more I think about it, it's like, how is it that people are getting uh, pregnant by accident? It doesn't make any
Hmm.
sense. But again, that's nature for you.
Yeah.
Um,
It finds a
mm,
way, man. It's Jurassic Park.
yeah, yeah. I love that quote. So we're coming to the end of this podcast. First of all, sirs, I want to thank you greatly for giving me the chance to interview you, to
Man,
speak to.
it's all good, man.
Yeah, no, but either way, I want to say it
Hmm.
because this to me has been a wonderful conversation, my main objective with this podcast was to get to know people, right? To talk
Hmm.
about things that people don't want to talk about, perhaps to talk about difficult issues. And one of the things, the first things I said to myself is that I don't want language to be a barrier, right?
Hmm.
And I was quite nervous throughout the week. Um, worrying if the conversation that we were to have today was going to be at all fruitful, if it was going to be,
No,
interesting or entertaining.
you're awesome. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you're nervous.
I'm blu- I,
I
I'm
mean,
blushing like hell.
yeah. I'm pleasantly surprised. At one point, we started talking about
Hmm.
tropes in movies, and I see, obviously you're not like a thespian, but you're very critical, right? You're very critical of stories, and you have an understanding, and not very many people have a good look at like themes and like have a
Mm,
strong understanding of that. So
mm,
I was impressed. I was happy to hear you, talking about Maleficent. I'm like, most people don't catch
mm,
that or recognize that. They're just like, oh, lady just green fire.
mm.
You
Yeah,
know? So
yeah.
I was glad. Yeah,
Mm.
you're very intelligent person. And I mean, first of all, you're bilingual. Point of fact one. That already denotes, just you're a smart guy. Um, learn two whole languages and you can speak very well. So I'm glad. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I'm going to cry.
No,
I'm a really sensitive guy. And I'm
no,
quite shy. People don't believe me, but I'm really, really, really shy.
no,
I,
I understand.
mm,
There's people that
mm,
they're really good at actually talking. I remember I
mhm,
had a student,
mhm,
um, I thought the world of her. I hope she goes to do great things. She's
mhm,
very great young lady. And
mhm,
you couldn't tell on the surface because she was so good at talking to people that she would get really nervous.
mm,
She was very good with like children. She's very good at talking to people and meeting them. And then on the inside, she's like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. But like on the outside, it's great.
mm,
She did a great job. She was a very smart student. Yeah, I
mm,
just hope. I mean, it's been like about 2 almost 3 years now. She's like a senior.
mm.
I hope she did great things. I hope she does great things. But yeah,
Hopefully.
there are people like that who are they're really good. Um on the outside, right? On the outside
Mm.
you're like, "Wow, you're so good." But on the inside they're terrified. So I know.
Yeah. That's the thing. But again, as I was saying, this to me was really a wonderful experience talking to you as someone again who started watching your videos. You know, year, some years ago, and I have this thing where whenever I talk to someone that I think his work impresses me, or I think greatly of him, I get really really nervous, like a fangirl, right? um, uh, I you know 5 years ago I think I saw saw one of your videos for the first time, and if my uh, if I knew uh, way back then that I would be talking to you on a podcast that I that I wanted to do, I would be, it would be like a dream to me. I know it sounds like too much, perhaps, but
No, I get you, man. I
it's
get you.
like, to me, every single milestone is worth celebrating, and to me the most important thing about is to talk to people I regard as interesting and have interesting conversations. And we there are some things that were left there in, I don't know how to say this in English, but we say in Spanish, quedaron en el tintero. Like they were left in the ink pot.
Oh, left on the table, you
Yeah,
say?
left on the table. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Um, so again, it was really wonderful talking to you. I don't know if you have any last thoughts you would like to share.
Um, I think that this was a great conversation, honestly. Um, I might even post it on my channel. You know,
But by all means,
I was happy, you know. So
if you want,
we'll see. We'll see how the upload schedule goes because there's other
mhm.
videos. But
No,
you know,
of
I
course.
think you're awesome to talk to. That's my thought.
Thanks, man. I'm really humbled by your words. So, with that said, we're going to finish this version of Calavera podcast, right? So, for anybody who comes here after this podcast is streamed, thank you for getting to this part. This to me was a first one, right? Doing a podcast in English and all that. So I get again, I thank you. I thank
Mhm.
all of the people who may watch this in the future, and I bid you farewell to all. Goodbye, everybody.